If we consider softer, what if softening can be a part of it all? What if it's our very nature too? What else becomes possible then? Hi, love. Welcome to Soften Up with Krystal Alexandria. Today, we're here to explore softening as a valid way of approaching these times and as a tool for resistance. I'd like to talk about three things today. One, I want to paint some context for softening as a tool for resistance and why I'm totally hooked on the idea. Two, I want to share some just invigorating, inspiring words from artists, spiritual teachers, and thought leaders that I really align with as we move forward in these conversations. Think Pema Chödrön, Tricia Hersey, and Andrea Gibson. And third, I want to play with the question of, is resistance antithetical to softening? Let's dive in. I believe that softening is inherently anti-capitalist, anti-patriarchal, and anti-supremacist, which all tell us that we are less than in some form, which all tell us in some way, some form that we are less than human, that we're less than human for being anything other than a machine, a white man, and a resource to be used and used and used and used. This idea of softening has been with me for some time now, and it's been something that I would even say has been like a spiritual conversation I've been in. It's something that I've been channeling with, and it's something that just kind of won't leave me alone. And I tried, I tried to ignore it. But it seems to be this evolution of the same conversations I've been having for more than a decade now. When I started as a mentor and coach, I started with the idea of self-care. That self-care was absolutely necessary. It was not something that was optional, and that we were worth being taken care of by ourselves, that it was allowed, that it was important, and it's actually essential to operating in this life as a human being. Then that conversation morphed into, or maybe even evolved into, a conversation around ease. I called myself an ease mentor, and I was really exploring and I wanted to be this embodied permission that ease was allowed into the conversation of our everyday lives, that it didn't have to be so damn hard all the time. And then in recent times, it's evolved into this softening conversation. When I think of softening, it's like my body is naturally exhaling right now. It feels so good. I think of setting out a stick of butter so that it can soften before you use it in a chocolate chip cookie recipe. I think of the soft petals of my beloved peonies out in the front yard, how they're so soft and yet they thrive in being that way. They're not meant to be any other way. I think of when our nervous system lets go, our belly softens, our breath quiets, there's a natural downshift. And when I think of the environments that are necessary for that to happen, for butter to soften, it has to be a conducive environment for that to happen. For peonies to thrive in all their brilliance, there has to be a certain environment for that to happen. For us to soften, our bodies to soften, there has to be a certain environment for that to happen. There has to be an innate safety and something that's supportive for that thing or that being to soften. Now, I think what's absolutely essential to continue this conversation is to acknowledge the privilege that I'm bringing to this conversation. To talk without speaking to the privilege, it can hit really different. And my hope is that in speaking to it, I can maybe disarm some of maybe the defense mechanisms that you might have in listening to a white woman talk about softening in these times. It's just, for real. So the privilege I bring to this conversation, and I may not hit all of them, but I'm white, I'm blonde. I walk in a body in this world that is supported in some ways by the systems that be, that is favored by the systems that be right now. I'm educated. I bring multicultural awareness to this from my lineages that I'm a part of, including Jewish heritage and Venezuelan heritage. I'm an American. I'm an entrepreneur. I design how my lifestyle looks and what I do every day and what I don't do every day. I'm child free. I have time. I have space. of my own choice and accord of how I've designed my life to explore such things as softening as a tool for resistance. I'm also not saying that all of those privileges are required to entertain this conversation. I have learned from many that walk in different levels and layers of privilege that bring so much incredible depth and insight and lived experience to this conversation. And it is an important thing to acknowledge. And to even have a quiet home space and mental bandwidth and safety, frankly, to entertain a conversation like this in an era of political violence in the United States of America, where I live, in a time of multiple genocides happening on this planet, and an active stripping away of our human rights and constitutional rights, literally as we speak. And the thing I've learned about privilege is it is something to be acknowledged. It is something to be learned about and understand it deeply and thoroughly. And at the end of the day, to know that you carry privilege and to understand what that gives you in an everyday lived experience is then to be used to cultivate change. And change does not look like one thing. Change includes having conversations that stretch us and grow us and allow space for us to imperfectly and messily be in this in-between together to see what else is possible for what we're building beyond these utterly terrible, harmful systems that we exist inside of. The change I hope to make with these conversations is to expand our minds and our hearts and our bodies, the safety that we carry in our bodies, into unconsidered territory, into unexplored territory, or maybe territory that's gone dormant within you that you wouldn't dare to have a conversation out loud about. And yet here I am inviting you forward to have that conversation together. I want to explore what else is possible for us, for our lives, for the systems and structures that we live within, and our communities locally and globally. The word soften innately makes me exhale. And frankly, between you and me, I am clinging, cherishing, holding close the things that make me exhale in these times like it's my job. These things that allow our body to soften from the inside out and from the outside in are to be cherished, held closely, protected, and deeply appreciated for the gifts that they are. When it comes to softening, nature is my guide. Nature is my home base. It's my foundational touch point. Because when I look to nature, I see so many ways that nature exists in a softened state. There, of course, is the swing into the, from the raging fires to the calm fireside chats that you can have, right? Every element has its extremes, but there's so many examples of softening that happen in nature, whether it's your dog's soft belly or your cat's soft fur or the soft bristles of an evergreen tree or the soft grass when you rub your hand over it. There's all these cues that if nature can soften, so can we. And as daring as that might feel and as unnerving as it might seem, we don't know what it can offer us unless we explore it and open up to it as a concept and idea and as a valid way to move through our days and relate to ourselves and relate to each other. All that to say, nature just helps me put everything right side up again. What if you and me, who are gifted in many ways, we have many skills, learned and maybe innate talents, in combination with being born for these times, on some level, if we exist in these times, if we walk this earth, there's a reason for that. What can open up when we change our internal come from place? What if we could come from a softened inner world? What if we can soften the starting point internally of what we think is possible for our world and for our communities? When I'm struggling with this whole idea, when I'm in resistance to it, because trust and believe it happens literally all the time. It challenges so many internalized systems, structures, conditioning around the way that things are. And when I think of what I learned as a young child, there was so much hard shit going on. It's no surprise that my foundation is that I have to play defense against how hard life is going to be, you know? And I think that's what this like self-care initially unlocked. And then it's like, okay, but what if ease? You know, it's like if you think of a spectrum from hard to ease, there's a lot of room in the middle. Hard is not the only option. So when I'm struggling, I like to turn to other thought leaders in this space who have said such profound and beautiful things about the idea of softening and have dared to put them in words so that I can read them and save them and stash them away for the days where it all feels just so ridiculously hard. One of my favorite artists and creators, her name is Amy McNee. She's an author of a book called We Need Your Art. Amy said, I think there's something incredibly beautiful about creating havens for people to find hope and find respite in a difficult world. It is, again, very political. Andrea Gibson, beloved late poet and activist, said, most people try to do good and find out too late that they should have tried softer. Makes me want to cry. The performance artist, writer, activist, theologian, Tricia Hersey, and author of Rest is Resistance, a manifesto, says, rest is resistance. Rest as a justice issue. Rest as a protest against white supremacy and capitalism. Pema Chödrön, Tibetan Buddhist nun and prolific author, says, softening what is rigid in our hearts. And lastly, Brandi Carlile, badass, Grammy-winning singer-songwriter, I happen to be a huge fan, says, finding beauty amidst turmoil is the most human thing we can do with our time. See, there's that exhale and just a sigh of swoon, you know? So is resistance antithetical to softening? I think this is going to be an ongoing exploration, honestly. And what I can say, at least in this version of who I am right now, and all of this reading and learning and listening that I've done around this topic, is that resistance is needed in our times. It is a tool that drives change. It protects us. It helps us maintain some kind of touch point with a democratic existence in specifically the United States of America, but way beyond that, albeit hugely imperfect that system is, and the expression of it that we've been living under. To resist in the word sense does make me armor up inside. Resist, right? Like I put my arm out to protect myself. I kind of like make myself bigger. It's like that fight stance, fight mode. And I think about what resisting these powers that be right now allows us. To resist is to advocate for love, for our humanity, for each other. These ridiculously terrible systems that we live inside of were not built for us. They were not built for our humanity. They don't give a shit about our wellness or our longevity or our togetherness or our well-being. Period. Point blank. They do not care about that side of our lives. And I argue that's the whole point of being here, is to experience the full range of our humanity. And we should not have to fight so hard just to survive. To resist the violent and truly perverse extremes that we're seeing right now. We are seeing the darkest, most evil underbelly of humanity all surface all at once right now. To resist that is to fight for our own safety and basic needs. We need that. It's a non-negotiable right now. And in that same breath, because duality, because we can contain multitudes, what comes next? What else is possible? What else can we build? And just to be clear, I am not interested in reforming or revising or settling any longer inside these systems. It needs to be trashed. It needs to be torn down. Let them fall. We need to compost that shit. We need to burn it into ash that can then be composted to build what it is we want, what will support us in thriving. So, what comes next? Serious question. I do not have answers, by the way, but I know that you, being a very wise, self-aware, community-oriented, soulful, magical AF, thoughtful, caring, natural leader that you are, I pose this question to you. to us, to this community, and many other aligned communities around the world, but especially in this country. What else will we build together? What else do we see being built right now in the face of all of this pain and terror? Could we consider, dream, fathom up that we could have a society built not in spite of our humanity, but fully with it in mind? What could happen? Let me ask you this. What could happen if we could collectively graduate from having to focus all of our waking hours just on surviving, working for money? What would help us thrive for generations to come? Here are some things that come to mind for me. And I'm curious, as you listen, notice in your body and your mind what you resist, what you disregard completely, what you throw away immediately upon hearing it, what you doubt is possible, what lights you up when you hear it, what gives you butterflies, what inspires one idea after another that you're running to jot down or put in your notes or pausing the podcast to come back to it later after you've had this juicy conversation with whoever's in the car with you. Track those as you listen. Okay. And let them be jump off points. Let them be seeds planted for many, 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 many more conversations around this. And I really hope that you share them with me, whether it's in the comments here or on social media, message me, whatever way. Like, I want to hear your ideas. I genuinely do. So here are my ideas. We start with reparations. We acknowledge the very bloody colonialist roots of this country. We dare to ask forgiveness, fully expecting that we may not ever receive it. We acknowledge the truth. We say the truth out loud of what happened, how we started, how we stole, how we killed, and bring it out into the daylight. And I am talking about reparations for every marginalized community that has been impacted by the starting point of this country. But number one being the Black community who built this country from the ground up, were torn away from their homes with the full intention to be extracted from, used and abused from the very start. They deserve that as a starting point, as a minimum. We build with the earth in mind. We ask forgiveness from our beloved earth. We ask her what she wants to see, how we can build in partnership with her every step of the way, knowing that it will be a learning curve and knowing that there are Indigenous communities that already know how to do this. We let them lead. We invest in their leadership and trust in their leadership. We nourish the soils. We grow with the land and its seasons and its rhythms and cycles in mind. We clean and clear our lands and oceans so that they may thrive again. And we uproot every single system that treats her like an afterthought into making her the forethought, the starting point, the come from place. Collective living beyond capitalism. My goodness. What else is possible for how we spend our daily lives? Who could we be if we didn't need to work to exist? How would we spend our time? What would we create? What could we pour into when it comes to our communities and living with each other in mind? How would we spend our days? Who would we want to spend them with? How could we contribute to each other? Universal healthcare, universal education, universal housing, universal food access, universal literally everything. Trust and believe, my friend, our tax dollars from a country of this magnitude, this size, with as much wealth as we know we have, we could build worlds, not in the extractive, ridiculous way that we continue to do. I'm talking about our tax dollars actually funding, supporting, and energizing our lives. No more funding wars, bombs, guns, and continue to take and take and take from our citizens to manufacture struggle that should never exist in the first place. We're tossing it out as we entertain these ideas. What else could we see that is generative, is connective, is community? What else is possible? Tax the rich. I said it. Let's say it again. Tax the rich. We cap the amount that any one person or any one company can make. CEOs make what their employees make. Teachers are the best paid people across the board. And let's add in all medical professionals, activists, educators, artists, authors, people that create culture. There is enough to go around. We all can have more than what we need in a sustainable way. So those are some of my ideas. I cannot wait to hear some of yours. And let me be clear about something. This is not radical. It's not. It's human. We are humans living on the most rich, diverse, beautiful, alive rock floating around our universe. We deserve to live well. What if our time on Earth could be one big experiment with how good it can get for us as humans? Imagine the epigenetic impact of that. Imagine the starting points that future generations could have, all because we dared to soften around the idea of what was possible for our lives, our Earth, and each other. Here are some journal prompts that I'll leave you with. And if you're not a journaler, I highly recommend becoming one. Oh, God, it's such a powerful way to get ideas down into physical existence, and that power of the pen being the conduit between this big, divine, cosmic conversation and consideration and the physical form of the page. What resonated with you from this conversation? What would you tell a friend about it if you had to summarize it? What would stand out as the top things to share? Write it all down. And lastly, what contributions do you absolutely crave to make? If money were no object, if time were no object, if every and all barriers got removed, what do you crave to contribute? Write it down. Share this episode with one person in your life that would be absolutely lit up to listen to it and to know that something like this exists in these times. I'll leave you with this. We are building the world that we want as we speak. May it be one we are so proud to be a part of building. Until next time.